Let's hope this is a semi-coherent, semi-rant of an episode. I'm back for a second night in a row. I had David Anderson on Wednesday night, came out Thursday, talking about 2026 recruiting class and kind of the strategy for Rutgers football in building the roster in this day and age. And that brings to a bigger picture frustration that I've been kind of bottling up, and I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, and I'm at the point now where it's very disconcerting, and I'm trying to do this in a way that is both respectful and also somewhat contained, yet genuine and emotional, because let's start with the fact that Pat Hobbs resigned, and this isn't to rehash the failures and the scandal of Pat Hobbs' demise. This is to point out that Pat Hobbs resigned from Rutgers Athletics on August 16th, 2024. So this is site, it's called howlongago.com. Just discovered it. Big fan. I'm recording this late Thursday night after a long week, but I'm that fed up that I want to do this. And I don't have a lot of free time, so I'm going to do it now. When this comes out on Friday morning, it'll be 329 days ago. It's all right here for you on howlongago.com. I should be getting sponsored for this. 47 weeks, 329 days. By the time this comes out, it'll be 7,885 hours. Let's see. It goes by the minute. Over 472,000 minutes and over 28 million seconds since Pat Hobbs resigned from Rutgers. Now, obviously, it was a complicated situation. President Holloway announcing pretty much right after that he was stepping away. So you can't really hire an AD before you hire a president, right? And I expressed my frustrations throughout the year of the delay of the process. And I'll say it again, third time, I think, publicly on the pod or on Spaces. I think President Tate is a fantastic hire. And I'm extremely positive and optimistic about what he brings to the table and the job I think he can do at Rutgers. That being said, welcome to Rutgers. The honeymoon's over. You're 10 days into your tenure, and you got a real mess on your hands because Rutgers is still without an AD. And now it's starting to get into speculation on the internet, message boards, social media. And when you look at, let's just give 3 recent examples, right? 3 recent examples. Maryland's AD leaves for Texas A&M around March. They hire someone in the sports executive business world. 2 months later, Michigan State fires their AD, hires the Georgia Tech AD 6 weeks later. And now Georgia Tech hires the number 2 from Tennessee a month later. Now, these are 3 legit Power 4 schools. They're not blue bloods, but they're legit athletic departments, universities, and they all reasonably made hires within a 2-month time period. And it's just unbelievable that we're here, right? We're literally what? It's July 11th as this comes out. Football preseason camp opens at the end of the month. Rutgers Athletics starts, games start counting in the middle of August with soccer, and we're going into the first ever year of revenue sharing. Obviously, NIL continues to kind of morph and develop as we go. Litigation, there's so much going on in college athletics. And Rutgers has no leadership at all now. Ryan Passari leaving for Tufts earlier this week. Good for him. I think he was a loyal soldier for the department for a very long time. He survived a lot of scandals with his bosses, 3 different ADs. And I think he's got to do what's best for him, and I'm happy for him landing at Tufts. I think that's, a solid D3 job. Obviously, it's a Boston area. It's a good place to live. So good for him. But now he's gone, and Rutgers still does not have an AD. Now, in terms of just the lunacy, can't even say it right, because I'm just aghast with how Rutgers again just puts themselves in a position. It's like, I don't date myself for this analogy, but as Rutgers fans, we are Charlie Brown going to kick the football, and Rutgers Athletics is Lucy pulling it away as we go to kick the ball. Time after time after time. When will we ever learn? Never, because we love Rutgers. And we are open to pain and abuse, and we keep coming back for more. And the administration of Rutgers for years, and listen, there's plenty of good people at Rutgers. And even if I don't think you've done a great job, you have to respect people that dedicate their careers to universities and are trying to do the best they can, right? But as a university, as an administration, we have lived through some shit. And now here we sit. I did a tweet today, and I got some positive feedback. I'm sure it ruffled some feathers. I said, who is in charge of Rutgers Athletics right now? And I put a poll up on Twitter right now. I'll just pull it up. Why not? 18 hours in at the time of this recording, since I put up the tweet, it's about 388 votes. So I said, who's currently in charge of Rutgers Athletics? Right now, the leader is the ghost of James Gandolfini at 44.8%. Shout out RU Screw Podcast, deserve to be on the ballot. They're at 23.5%. Sir Henry is at 16%, and in the caboose is it just changed. Literally, we're at 390 votes. Live tally. Sir Henry's at the 16.4%, and Mr. Magoo is in the caboose at 15.6%. Who is in charge of Rutgers Athletics? Is it the CFO, Mike Zool, who has had his own kind of mixed history within the athletics department? And it's just baffling to me that here we are. It's July 11th. Pat Hobbs resigned on August 16th a year ago. I was going to the beach on my annual trek with my family to LBI. I'm going back in 6 weeks, and we still don't have an AD. President Tate, this is your first real test pretty quickly. There has to be, and I've spoken about this for years, there must be alignment at Rutgers. And, why do organizations, why do perennial losers in sports, in business, why do their fortunes change? Right? It's institutional change. It's the leaders. It's people. It's a cultural change. It's vision. And, historically, right? I mean, just kind of off the cuff here. I mean, New England Patriots, right? They were terrible. And then Robert Kraft buys them, and then they become a dynasty, that's probably not the best example, but the well's running dry right now, and but it happens. It happens, and that's why in sports now too. A lot of times you see really quick turnarounds. You change the GM in pro sports, and you change the coaching staff, and all of a sudden things can change rather quickly. I'm not expecting that to happen at Rutgers, but what I'm saying is we need institutional change. We need new vision. It starts with President Tate. But he has a real pickle on his hands, and that's getting alignment to make a decision. Now, there's a lot of speculation out there that, I've heard that there were finalists for about a month now, and, whether the job was offered or not offered, but there was a front runner, and did they get cold feet? Did they not? Who knows how this process is actually working behind the scenes, but whatever it is, it's not working. And there's a lot of just, I think, speculation coming from frustration as well. And I think, is there a power struggle at play? I've said very positive things about Amy Towers and her leadership in the board of governors, and I think I know this. I think I know that she is professional and organized enough that if they have who they think is their right candidate, they probably thought they had alignment, and all of a sudden now they don't. Or maybe that candidate decided not to. Rutgers announced they hired Turnkey to lead the search for the athletic director on April 29th. April 29th, which was a bit absurd at the rate anyway, because the job's been open since mid-August. But that's another 2.5 months. Steve Politi and others have reported that, the finalists were in the sports business world, and Rutgers was taking that approach. There's some speculation that said they'll hire kind of a number two who's worked in college athletics and kind of essentially run the department, and then they're going to hire a business person, executive, to essentially be the money guy, money girl. I don't care. If you bring money into Rutgers, I don't care what you are, what you want to call yourself, what color you are. I don't care. If you're here to help Rutgers, I'm on your side. And I think in terms of that approach, and I've said this before, it all comes down to, do you have the right people, right? And Rutgers, for whatever reason, can't figure it out. And how much is going on behind the scenes? Are people blocking things? I know that, there's a lot of speculation out there. There's not a lot of clarity in terms of, there's a search committee, obviously, and this is, I'm not trying to stoke the fire here. I'm just saying an obvious fact, right? That the most influential person in the athletic department is Greg Schiano, the football coach, highest paid employee. Let me just state, Rutgers football, absolutely, in terms of revenue sharing, deserves the lion's share of the revenue sharing pool, whatever that is. It's 60%, 70%, 80%, 85%. I don't know what it is, but whatever. It's obvious that football deserves the majority of the pool. Now, that being said, it's bad business to just not have a plan for all your other sports. And, I've said this also in this AD search, like, it's bad business to not invest into basketball, with the NCAA tournament, with the exposure, with the TV deals, with the money that the revenue that men's basketball, it's bad business to ignore that sport. There's a lot of other sports. I was listening to Curry Hicksage. If you know him, I've talked to him in the past. His Spaces, he now has a podcast. It's must listen. You should subscribe. I highly recommend it. But he was interviewing Will Reed recently. Ironically, LSU. He was fired by new Rutgers president William Tate. But he was talking about, LSU being a football school. And obviously that was the priority, right? But he also said, being the basketball coach there, how rabid fans were. And he said it didn't matter the sport. If a team was wearing purple and gold and they were keeping score, fans cared and wanted to win. It didn't matter the sport. And you see that at LSU with, they've won national championships in multiple different sports. And that is what any successful athletic department should aim to be. That's what a lot of the best athletic departments in the Big Ten have been about. SEC, ACC, those powerhouses that just win in every sport. Stanford, the Directors Cup. We haven't even talked about how Rutgers finished. It was 80th. This abysmal performance once again. But Rutgers as a whole needs to have a plan. They need to have a vision. They need to have a leader. And football matters more than any other sport, no doubt. So my whole point is Greg Schiano should have some input on this search. Absolutely fair. How much influence? Hard to say in terms of how much he actually has. I don't know. I'm sure he has some. We know he has the ear of Amy Towers. Why would he not? They've been huge supporters of football over the years, thankfully. And so, yeah, Schiano should have influence. Should any one person's influence? Again, I don't know how much influence Schiano has in this and what role he's playing, but I would hope in the position that he's in that he can use his influence in a positive way to help with alignment. That's what's needed here. And again, it's July 11th, and it doesn't appear that we're that close to hiring someone. And I don't know all the behind the scenes, but I know there were finalists. I know it seemed like they were moving forward, and that's been a while now. And now things are starting to leak out. And it's just a damn shame for fans that care about this university, that care about this athletic department, that just desperately want everyone to succeed. And, I tweeted this. I know some people probably think I'm corny, but I love music. And, paraphrasing the great LCD sound system, Rutgers, I love you, but you're bringing me down. And that statement has never been more true than right now. And it's just so frustrating. For years and years and years, nothing's easy at Rutgers. You talk about the Rutgers screw, that was just mentioned, but about Rutgers doing Rutgers things. Just shooting themselves in the foot sometimes, and earning the mockery that they get at times. This is not how any Big Ten school should be operating. And it just feels like there's a mess behind the scenes. And it's not really being reported officially. And I wish it was, because enough's enough. And I said this earlier in the spring, before the president's search. And, I've said this many times, probably tired of hearing it, that it is, when people talk about, being a good fan or a bad fan or who's more loyal or whatever, like I'm the best fan. There's no best, right? But those loyalists, right, that can see no harm or no bad or no criticism out there, that's not being, in my opinion, a productive fan, because that doesn't usher change, and change is always needed. And right now, change is needed, and it's our duty, our obligation to ourselves, to the rest of the fan base, to Rutgers as a whole, to speak up and say enough is enough. Everybody needs to get in a room and figure it the fuck out, because it's the middle of July. Like, what are we doing? every day now, is every day late, a month behind in the future? I don't know, but it's something not good. Whatever it is, it's not good. It's not good. And it's all happening in such a transformational period in time that it is, I'll say it, so freaking typical in Rutgers fashion that this situation is happening right now at the absolute worst time. And it's one thing after another. And it's just really frustrating. President Tate, honeymoon's over. Hope the week and a half was fun. But he needs to get everybody in a room and he's got to figure this out. And that is what Rutgers needs, is they need new leadership, new vision, and for a president that appears to value athletics, I think he has a chance to have the biggest influence in a positive way on Rutgers athletics in the history of Rutgers presidents. He certainly brings the right mindset. He's saying all the right things. He's said all the right things. His actions in his career prior to Rutgers all signals that. But he needs a partner. He needs a leader of the athletic department that is going to move things forward, that is going to bring people together, that is going to bring in new money and reshape the future of Rutgers athletics. Because right now it's a rudderless ship, and that's not even a pun. That is fact. There's literally no one running the athletics department a month out of the school year, beginning the first school year with revenue share in the history of college sports. So, of course, Rutgers is in this situation. And for crying out loud, you can never go full Mad Dog. I just pulled a Mad Dog line. I'm obviously at the end of my rope here. It's just infuriating, and I just wish, hope, pray, whatever you may do, but Rutgers just continues to can't get out of its own way. And, you know, I have gray hairs to prove it. I have no hair to prove it. You know, I'm getting up there. I've been, you know, as if you're listening to this, you probably already know. I mean, I've been a fan for 4 decades, and they can't get out of their own way, and they can't stop topping themselves. I mean, just think about the last decade, 12 years, you know, just with Mike Rice, and then, you know, Tim Pernetti, who I love and was so influential in getting Rutgers into the Big Ten, and just how him and Barchi and, you know, Pernetti was the fall guy, and then, you know, the Julie Herman debacle, and then now Pat Hobbs debacle, and, you know, many scandals within the athletics department over the years and in the last decade as well. And now we're here. It's not even a scandal. It's just no leadership at all. No one's even in the room. So I don't know what you call this, a plea, a rant of a deranged Rutgers fan, madman, old, you know, losing whatever wit I may have left. I know I've taken a break on the pod for a while, and I kind of needed it. But, you know, I appreciate anyone that values my opinion, and my opinion is that this sucks. And I think it's a bigger mess than we realize. And I don't know how it's going to get fixed. But other than President Tate showing his value right now and getting this fixed and getting this figured out. And it's not just about hiring someone. You have to hire. There needs to be alignment, and there needs to be leadership and vision and a clear path that this new AD, with his business side, hiring, you know, a college athletics veteran to help run the department, whatever the makeup of the leadership of the athletics department is, you have to have the right people in place. And that's how great turnarounds start, right? Cultural changes. You need the right people in place to lead. And right now, Rutgers doesn't even have the wrong person in place to lead. They have no one in place to lead. And you have many programs that are hurting from an NIL perspective. You know, you have, in terms of revenue sharing, I mean, obviously that has been all decided going into this year, but you need a long-term plan. You need strategy. You need, analysis. You need all kinds of things going on. You need just, relationships, in Rutgers, outside of Rutgers, research, like strategy, a war room. I mean, you got nothing right now. And here we are, July 11th, 329 days since Pat Hobbs resigned, and Rutgers is still looking for an athletic director. Friendly reminder, Maryland took 2 months recently. Georgia Tech took, Michigan State took 6 weeks. Georgia Tech took a month. Rutgers, 329 days in counting. When will this mess end? I wish I knew, but thank you so much for listening and watching once again here at the Scarlet Faithful Podcast.